Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. We are so excited to have you guys here with us today. I'm already seeing people chatting and letting us know where they're from, so you guys know the drill. You know, that's usually the first question I ask is where everyone is tuning in from. Um, got some people in Virginia, North Carolina, a lot of East Coast folks.
Georgia?
Yeah, Georgia. Awesome. Yeah, you guys know the drill. That's always the first question. It's usually because I love seeing that people are experiencing seasons. I don't really get seasons in Arizona. It's hot and then less hot. So I like seeing what the weather is happening around the world where you guys are tuning in from. We got people from Canada as well. That's super cool. Well, awesome. We'll go ahead and jump into it. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about casting vision for your church, and we have Dean Sweetman with us here today. So we're so excited that you guys are joining us. Our plan is just to have a conversation, honestly, give you guys some insight onto how to cast vision and the basics just to running and managing your church well. So we'll go ahead and hop in. But first thing I want to highlight, obviously, is that you guys are joining us from your churches, your admins, your pastors. And we understand that it's a stressful job. It's a weighty job. You guys have a lot to manage. And so with Tithely, our goal is always to make things easier for you and take things off your plate that don't need to be on it. And so with that, of course, we have the slogan, I should say, for Tithely is that we just simply want to serve you and we want to help you serve the church. And so that means, no extra steps, putting everything in one place for you to manage your church well. No unanswered questions. And that is speaking about the product itself, but also with our team. Like beyond the product, there's a whole team of people that are behind you and ready to support you and uplift you as you use our products. And then, of course, no hidden costs. We make it simple for you to utilize our products and get in there and do what you need to do. So I do want to make a shout out really quickly before we get into the main content of things to our church management software. A lot of people join Tithely and think that it's just giving, but it's not. There's a whole product suite. There's an ecosystem of things that have been created to work alongside you to help you manage your church well. So just want to make a shout out to our church management software because it really does put everything in one place for you, making it super easy to manage your people, your volunteers, your planning and scheduling, your communication and follow-up, all of the things that you need to communicate with your people and manage your people is available to you within our church management software. So also, if you are watching and you do not already have our all access package, this is again that ecosystem that I was mentioning that comes with church management, our apps, our website, all that kind of stuff. That's all included within all access. And if you don't have it currently, go ahead and pull your phone out, scan the QR code on the screen, and that will get you 3 months of all access at $99, which is our prices are already affordable, but I need you guys to know like $99 is incredible for what you're getting. You're getting so many useful tools. So highly recommend if you don't already have all access, go ahead and scan that QR code on the screen and get a discount. As well, at the end, you guys are, I'm seeing already familiar names, so you guys are already used to how these run. But if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A channel. Our goal is to answer them at the end of this webinar. So go ahead and drop them in there throughout the call. I'll be monitoring them if you have questions or if you just want to share a thought and amen, a praise the Lord in the chat, do that while we're talking. Absolutely interact with us. We would love to chat with you. So make sure you ask any of those questions in the Q&A channel though, because we'll address them at the end of this call. But now that I've gone through all that, I wanted to give us a moment to introduce ourselves. My name is Moriah. I'm a part of the education team here at Tithely. So I apologize. You probably heard lots and lots of my voice, seen a lot of my face, but any of the help center content, these webinars, our Tithely University, all of that is stuff that our education team owns and that I'm able to be a part of. But I've been at Tithely for going on 3 years actually in a couple weeks. So started in support and worked my way through success and now here to product education. So I'm just so honored to be with you guys today and hope that you guys glean a lot of wisdom from Dean today. So Dean, I'll give you a moment if you'd like to introduce yourself and
Thank
give us a
you.
little blurb.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Always, I just love talking to our customers and people that use our products, and
Yeah.
doing a little kind of something different today. As you guys know, I was in ministry for about 30 years, different capacities. I traveled extensively, doing a lot of missions work in my 20s, and then started a church in Atlanta, Georgia, in the 90s, and then had the idea of giving with the phone back around 2012. And so it's been an amazing journey. It's really an honor to be here and chat with you, and hopefully we can unpack a few things and learn some things together, and so we can be better at what we do, which is serving the kingdom, seeing people come to Christ, and discipling the saints. So
Yeah.
pumped.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I'm super excited. I want to go ahead and jump in so that we have plenty of time to chat through these questions. But I'll go ahead and ask the first one. So, how can a pastor practically audit their week to ensure they're serving God's purpose, not just feeding the machine of church programming?
Yeah, look, I think time management is obviously a thing. It wasn't really a thing when I grew up. Kind of learning, um, the kind of the ropes of just work, business, church, the whole thing. And but it's certainly in the last 10 years, like making sure that we don't waste time and utilizing technology and tools and all the things, and some of that we provide. There's plenty of tools out there now that basically can get us more efficient as human beings. And I church life, it doesn't matter if your church is 50 people, 500 people, or 5,000. It's a pretty stressful job working in a church.
Right.
And there's money. You're thinking about income, money a lot. Obviously you're trying to keep expenses in check, and you're trying to do what God's called you to do with the resources you have. And so making sure that we really utilize our time in the right way. And I think too, like most pastors I know, and I was like this, we love to go to work. I love going to the office. I love talking to people. I love being in meetings. I just enjoyed it. And I was very much a people person, and quite sanguine and chatty, and most ministers are. But it's easy to get burned out too, and overdo it, and kind of try to feel like you should have all the answers when you don't. God's got all the answers, and a lot of times we're trying to force things to happen that we shouldn't be forcing things to happen. We get, you get tired, you get stressed, you make bad decisions, you get a bit snappy with your family and your spouse. So like the pressures of ministry are full on. And so when you think about, okay, I'm going to, and I had a kind of a routine that I wasn't super rigid with. Obviously prayer was an important part, still is, kind of mostly in the mornings, although sometimes it wasn't practical for me to, even like today, it's like, I'll just go for a 30-minute walk down my street and just get outside, bit of sunshine, clear my head. Like those little things that I still use today are so practical, but they're so good just to be able to, and because you get in the office and it's meetings galore, and like it's just, you look up and it's 5, 6 o'clock, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And you did 30 phone calls, and you sat in 3 different, management meetings, and all the things that entails. And so just really managing your time becomes really critical for your own kind of well-being, mental well-being, spiritual well-being, and making sure you just give yourself that time to be balanced and in all the busyness, not to get too caught up.
Yeah, I think as well in ministry, the tendency is sometimes to mistake busyness for fruitfulness. And I think that's kind of what you were touching on, is that tension between this is a job, but it's also about God, and it's always been about God. So I love that reminder.
Yes, I noticed someone's bivocational. A lot of ministers, are, they've got their church, they're ministering, and they've got jobs as well. And so that's like triply hard when you think about, managing, maybe it's just a part-time job, but, working like to support and doing ministry, even more important to make sure
Yeah.
that you're.
Yeah, can you speak to that at all? Because I know most people, I think a lot of people in today's economy
Yeah.
especially are working both as pastors and
Yeah.
also a job. Can you speak to that, your experience with that?
Yeah, the gig economy wasn't kind of a thing when I was growing
Right,
up. I wish it was. I probably would have, driven Uber for a couple hours a day.
right.
But look, it's just I actually think it's fantastic that pastors have a connection, if you can, um, having a job kind of outside of the church world is really healthy because you're basically dealing with people depending on what you're doing, and we help and serve a lot of church planters, and a lot of times you're raising money to plant your church, which is good. You don't want to start churches underfunded, but I always encourage church planners to go to the local Starbucks and just start like earn some money. You're
Mhm,
going to meet people, local people every day,
right.
and it's like, oh, what are you doing? Ah, just my family moved it, and we're starting a church, and like this is where we meet. Like getting out amongst. I had a buddy of mine. He went and he was kind of a handy guy, and he got a job at Home Depot,
Mhm.
and he was planning a church. And man, he just the amount of people that he invited to church just because he's
Yeah,
out there and he did it in
yeah,
like a really cool way. So I actually think it's really healthy. There is a
yeah,
point at some, although I've known pastors with large churches, big budgets, that maybe they have an insurance agency on that they worked for years, or and financial. I know a guy who's a financial planner and he's full-time minister, but he kept his financial planning business. And so, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to go about all of that. Obviously, once you get, your budgets are go over $500,000, $1 million, and now you've got staff and a lot of moving parts and children's ministry and worship leaders on staff and all the things. It that does get difficult to do that, but while you can, you should.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think over the last couple years, obviously, we can both agree that, we cannot predict the future. I guess we never can, but especially over the last several
I
years, we
know.
certainly cannot.
Oh,
Um,
that's the
and
truth.
so that kind of leads into the next question. So when
Yeah.
you're leading a team, how do you cast vision when the world around you feels shaky?
Yeah, like vision is shoot, I've been talking about, ever since I was young. I'm in my 60s now, but as a young minister, I was fortunate to grow up in a church environment where there was a very strong vision and our vision was to, plant churches and train people and send them kind of all over the world. And even,
Mm,
as a church planter, we ended up planting about 50 churches, over the years. You went to my son's church in LA, which
mm,
the seeds of that were, you know, um, was started many years ago. And then Jake, took it on to bigger and better heights. But no, I just think you vision is conviction.
mhm,
And when you have a conviction about what you're doing, where you're going, how you're going to get there, and then you can articulate that vision to a smaller team than a larger team. Um, it's the most critical thing for church growth. People will give to vision, they will serve a vision, they will go the extra mile for a vision. And that can only really come from the leadership team. And really, it's going to come from, in kind of my world of growing up doing church, the senior pastor was the kind of chief visionary. I know things have evolved a little bit. There's teaching pastors.
mm,
There's different kind of leadership roles now that kind of the church structured a little bit differently to when I grew up. But having the conviction to know what you believe, and B what God's put in your heart to do,
right.
and then you have to perfect the ability to be able to articulate that in a 1 minute version. It's like an entrepreneur. You've got your idea, you're starting your company. Well, you need that elevator pitch, that 1 minute version to explain basically what you're doing in a very concise manner. And then if people are interested, then then I had a 5 minute version and I would start to talk about what I felt God was calling me to do, and my family, and this is who we wanted to reach, and blah blah blah. And then if you really got excited, I could chew your ear off for an hour and talk about
Right.
the future and all the things we wanted to do. So I think having something that's, a conviction coming out of the leadership team and the church planner for sure is something you believe in to the point where like nothing is going to stop you.
Yeah.
And then and then it's a little bit monotonous because you just got to articulate it over and over and over. And when you think you've said it enough, you got to say it some more, because the people that were there last week aren't there this week. So you got to say it again. And then those people, you got to say things 7 times for people to remember anything anyway.
Yeah.
And so you never stop preaching the vision.
Yeah.
You never
And
stop.
can you back up a little bit for us and maybe give us just you can do the 1-minute pitch version of what is vision. Can you give us that explanation?
Absolutely. Like vision is seeing the future, which sounds obvious. Now, as Christians, as church leaders, we're given faith. We all have a little seed of faith to begin with. Hopefully that faith grows. And faith, the book of Hebrews teaches us, is the ability to believe in something that's not there yet, but you believe it could be there. And so through a bunch of different actions, practical, spiritual, whatever, you're going to bring this thing that wasn't there to pass. So vision is seeing the future, seeing things that are not there yet, that you have now got a personal vision for, and the seed of what you want to see happen through your ministry. And then you may spend your whole life walking that out.
Right.
And it evolves, it changes, the seasons, no question, all that kind of happens on the way. But at its very core, vision is seeing the future. And for me, that just always was birthed out of prayer. And it was just a matter of, and you've got this, the vision, the big one. But then, as you grow as a leader, you get a vision for people. Like, I've got this young couple and they've joined the church and they've been in my discipleship classes and they've started to serve and they've got a heart for youth or whatever. It's my job as, the leader to help people fulfill their mission and fulfill the vision that God's given them. And so, but you can't do that unless you're fulfilling your own, and you're seeing what God's called you to do. So, and it never ends. Just never ends.
That's good. I think a lot of people, I would assume, just because it's questions that I've asked myself before, do you have any insight, or can you speak to a quote unquote sticky vision? Because I know you talk about that, you're going to repeat it a lot, and it's often to new people, but sometimes it's to the same group of people. Is there any standout things that you maybe can recall from your own experience that create that sticky vision?
Yeah, absolutely. We were the church and the churches that I've always been involved in were very evangelistic. Like, we love seeing people come to Christ, and it's kind of part of our calling as a church. The church I grew up in, we love seeing people. Now, we've got a lot of different beliefs in the room here. We've got people that and it's not about like my doctrine, your doctrine, whatever. I think we can all agree at the base level that we love people seeing in relationship with God.
Yep.
And so that was a big driver for me. And so we would celebrate, there's Jesus, left the 99 to rescue the one. The prodigal son is all about celebration and redemption of both sons, actually. And so it's just, and then we would celebrate. And there's nothing better than like introducing people who have made a commitment to follow Christ, get them through the first 2, 3, 4 months where they get water baptized, to like show the church that and show people. And it's also related to like, hey, you're sacrificing, we're giving to this vision. Here's the fruit of this vision. It's actually a changed life, a marriage restored, a child, back home, like all the things that we do in ministry every day, keeping that in front.
Right.
and showing people this is why we do what we do.
Mhm.
It's motivating, and
Yeah.
and that's what gets people to go the extra mile.
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate you highlighting that people are the vision. Like,
Yeah.
that's really what I'm hearing you say is that people are the vision.
Yeah, like the buildings and the this and the that, and like the conference and the camp and the you like all of that is, yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
And then basically, but it always comes back to people.
right.
And so I I struggle when I talk to people in ministry, and they're just then they're not excited by seeing lives changed. It's kind
Yeah.
of the whole point.
It's like, that's why we're doing this.
So it's like, get that passion. Like, and look, it's easy to lose, and it's easy to go. You're in the grind, and you're in the mundane of life, and your kids are sick, and you're running around to ballet and lessons and like all the things. It's just madness, all the stuff we fit in our life. But uh, if you've got to go on a 2-day retreat and walk around a mountain and get that passion back to serve and love people, you go do it, because that's the whole
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Would you say that vision then is also culture? Are those hand in hand? Or are they
Yeah,
you differentiate those two?
I mean, so it's a really good kind of thought. The vision typically kind of creates a culture around it,
Mm,
and the culture of church is widely written about. It's a little bit misunderstood, but you do get to create the culture that you want in your church.
right.
Like, as leaders, you get to create that environment. And so is it I always wanted an environment of celebration, of
Mm,
joy, of redemption, of uplifting, of positive. Yeah, sometimes there's shaky things happening in the world. I remember, leading the church through 9/11 was one of the
mhm.
toughest moments. And
Yeah.
it was such a shock for the country. Um, we were kind of 5 years in, so we had a great bunch of people, and we're very much a family. And then, but you have a world event. I I talked to a lot of pastors through COVID, um, and it was brutal, like just brutal. And I wasn't at that point. I wasn't pastoring full time, but man, having a team around you where you can, and a mentor that you can call up and cry on their shoulder, and and just vent.
Mhm.
All those things are critical. When and the hard thing is that you've got to be strong up front, right? Because people are looking, like, you can't go weak kneed on stage.
Right.
You've got to be able to um, kind of rise up in moments,
Yeah.
and then too, a lot of crazy in the last. You think about the last few years, we've got cultural issues facing us here in the US.
Mhm.
Uh, we've got all manner of troubles, and we know the answer. The answer is Jesus. It's
Right.
not government. It's not you know it, it, it's Jesus. That's what is going to change the world. And a
Mhm.
strong, powerful local church is the
Yeah.
tool that it uses. And so, but man, you, I would say, as a leader, if you don't have someone you can talk to who's not on your board, not in your church, but a trusted person who maybe has done a bit more life than you, 10, 15 years, more experience, having that person to be able to just say, I am having the worst month of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And if you don't have anyone to say that to,
Mm.
that gets hard.
Yeah. No, that's good. Someone in the chat did say that culture will be created whether you're intentional about it or not, and I love that highlight
That's very good.
that's really good. It really
'Cause
can
you can
be.
have the culture you don't want,
Right.
because exactly that,
Yeah. Yeah.
inaction, or kind of allowing, maybe compromising some things that you believe in.
Right.
And so all of a sudden you've got this environment. It's like, man, where did that? Well, it's the one you created. And so, a lot of church turnaround. There's a lot of churches that have been around a long time. They're in a rut. They more, kind of get in a different direction. It's hard, but it's doable.
Yeah, yeah, and it kind of speaks as well to I see a chat as well. Obviously, a lot of what we're talking about is following the main thing, the aftermath of COVID,
Yeah.
and kind of what does vision. I think a lot of people in the chat, I'm getting the sense that it's restoring vision, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. Is that maybe we did have it and we lost it because of the shaky times? Um,
Well,
yeah,
100%. And like the church, that was a pretty dark time.
right.
Like, we have a lot of data. We see a lot of behavior around giving, obviously around attendance, and it was tough. And depending on what state you lived in, my son, as well, you were probably there. Like they
Mhm.
couldn't meet for like a year,
Yes.
and so that just kind of posed just like shocking amount, like things that you just like, well, we can't meet for a year.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
but I actually think so. What's happened in my estimation is the church has gone through a pretty big stress test, COVID, and some other cultural things that we faced here in the US. And I think there's a resurgence going on right now. A lot of young people coming back. I'm hearing, the word revival is means different things to different people, but we need a move of God,
Mhm.
and a lot of times it's going to happen with younger people. When I came to Christ in the early '80s, we were just a bunch of surfers in Sydney, like
Yeah.
coming to Christ, and hundreds and thousands of us, like over like 2-year period.
Mhm.
It was like a incredible move
Yeah.
of God and I kind of found and discovered church kind of early in that period, and so I was just caught up in such a beautiful kind of move of the spirit.
Mhm.
um but yeah, it's you gotta keeping the passion alive, keeping people around you that are going to stand with you. You're in the trenches, man. Church is
Yeah.
the Bible talks about is warfare,
Mhm.
and because there's an enemy trying to stop us,
Yeah.
and we know we're going to win. But we've got to be faithful every day, wake up and inspire people to fulfill their call.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I think you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but
Mhm.
um, obviously a lot of pastors mention that scarcity mindset and that, it's we're not doing enough or we doing either we're doing too much, we're not doing enough. It's that Goldilocks syndrome of how can we
Yep.
meet in the middle and lead our church well.
Yep.
I think it would be really helpful for us to maybe glean from you a little bit of wisdom about how can we identify like practically if we're leading out of fear rather than out of God's provision.
Yeah. Look, doing anything out of fear is usually has a bad ending.
Right.
Um, because the it's not like I went to a horror movie and it's not that fear. Not that I go to horror movies. It's not being afraid in the moment.
Mhm.
It's this nagging thing that sits in the back of your mind, and maybe like a lot of pastors, they get down on themselves. It's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. That's a lie. You're plenty good enough. God made you who you are. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. God didn't have one of you. He wanted one of you. He made one of you. You like that's what you've got to know. When you have setbacks, it lodges kind of fear in the back of your mind. Like, some of the worst things that happen in ministry are when people let you down.
Mhm.
You've believed in people or you've trusted people, and they're humans, right? So we've got to keep all that in perspective because we're all far from perfect. But that can really be a real hit to the heart. When someone that you've trusted maybe has let you down, happens in church life all the time. So, you have to guard your heart. But
Mhm.
if it's too guarded, then people can't get in. So
Right.
to your point, it's like, oh, is it too much? Is it not enough? I'm just like, man, I've got to keep my spirit healthy,
Mm.
which is my own prayer life, my own, Bible reading time. If I'm not healthy as a pastor, I can't minister. I can I can fake it for a bit, but if
Right.
I'm living in fear and gripped in fear, you can only do that for so long.
Mhm.
And that, you're usually a couple of steps from a burnout moment, and
Right.
if you kind of stay in that zone. And so You've got to, again, have some great people that believe in you, and you've got to have your own walk relationship cooking with the Lord to be able to lean on Him when times are tough. And as pastors, we all know you can't escape. There's tough times.
Yeah. And can you speak at all to maybe your own experience of doing a temperature check on yourself, maybe checking and saying like, where can I define a clear edge that I'm heading in the wrong direction? Let's make a turn.
For sure. Like I would, the speaking part of church is sometimes very stressful. Depends on, I enjoyed the pulpit. I found the pulpit. So the problem is that you can just get up and start. And once you preach for 20 years, it's not automatic, but you can get up there, right? But I knew if I had skipped, like, studying and kind of meditating and really kind of thinking through what I wanted to say on a Sunday, and I just, you can do it for a few weeks, right? Everyone has but you can't stay like that. Sure. And so anytime where you're taking shortcuts, and no one else knows except you,
right?
So that's why you've got to be honest with yourself and say, man, I'm slipping, or I'm getting burned out here, or I'm stressed out, and my patience is thin, and I'm taking it out on the people I love, and like all those things. Being self-aware enough to be honest where you're at is pretty key.
Yeah.
But it's hard because the pressure to perform as a minister, not to make any mistakes, like there's a front, like your family's got to be perfect, everything's got to be perfect. It's like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's okay, right? It's okay to not kind of step up and hit it out of the park every time. I wanted a graceful environment, a culture of grace, and so I was a graceful person.
Yeah. And
pretty much how you treat others and how you act is kind of what is coming back to you. And so, but burnout is a thing. Leading from positions other than faith and vision is, we will walk through it, but you got to realize it and get real honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Step out of it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's awesome. Well, I'm gonna pivot us just a tiny bit to talk a little bit more about products and actual tools and administrative tools that we're using, because of course that's everyone who's tuning in with us today is someone who's using products. So I kind of want us to learn a little bit about how we can reframe administrative tools spiritually. I think the tendency is to divide them. It's admin world, and I show up to work and I do paperwork and volunteer management and whatever entails the admin side of things, and then it's separate from the move of God and the Spirit. So I think if you could speak to us a little bit about how we connect those two things.
I mean, good ministry, healthy church has to have both. It has to be highly organized. There's not many churches that I've been in that have grown and are impacting their community in a large way where there is not a high degree of organization,
right,
and a high degree of discipline, and a high degree of everybody knows their role. All the troops are all in the right place, and right, let's go. Then obviously there's the spiritual side of things where you're preaching and teaching and prayer and all the things that we believe in. And you want people to experience that, but you must have both. And, I have a lot of kind of charismatic friends that are like lots of spirit, not a lot of practical. And then I have a lot of other friends who are like super practical, not a lot of spirit. You can have both. And depending on the denomination you kind of grew up in and how you've done church for, your whole life, it doesn't really matter kind of doctrinally, but what matters is that you've got to mix both. You've got to have this spiritual dynamic with all the things that, we've been talking about to some extent, and then you've got to be organized. And now, like back in the day, Excel, I can still remember we started the church in like Easter of 96. And I wasn't an expert in Excel. I think it was actually Lotus Notes back then. That's what I had before you were born. But I would, it's just basic spreadsheet, and I'd put the names down. I'd put the dates across the top. I just, it was basic, trying to manage the people and it's a little bit, it's like Jesus with the 99 and the one, like, and he's like, my sheep know my voice. It's like, you want to know your people and you want to know what's going on. Well, now we have all these awesome tools where basically I can manage data. I can set reminders. I can send happy anniversary texts. I can go happy birthday emails. I can get alerts. I can call people. Like, it's like so awesome. All the tools we have now that businesses had for years. You go to an insurance agent, and they've been using a CRM for their customers, for 30, 40 years. And you get those reminders and those thank yous and all that stuff. And then, we do things like managing groups and managing volunteers. Like raising up volunteers is probably the number one church growth thing you can do. Like, apart from leading people to Christ and discipling them, like getting people serving in church is probably the number one thing for their personal growth. Because now all of a sudden, and giving is one thing, obviously that's a big kind of revelation moment of, oh, I'm really serious about this God thing, and I'm going to church and I'm trying to, and then, oh, okay, I'm going to give. Like, that's not natural, but it's a really big part of our spiritual growth. So I would just, you got to have the practical, you got to have the spiritual, depending on your upbringing and how all that works for you just got to work it out, but you need both. And when you do get both, you get healthy congregations and healthy churches.
Yeah. Well, and what you mentioned just there about volunteers is a great segue into another question we have here is, how do you use organization and systems to actually protect our volunteers, ensuring they serve from a place of rest rather than obligation? I think we've talked a lot about pastors, but like you just said, volunteers are the backbone. They're the heart. So, yeah. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. Like, I remember I had a wonderful family in our church, and they had literally served in kids' church every week for like 18 months, every week, but I didn't know it. And eventually, they got pretty, like, they kind of disappeared. And I'm like, hey,
what happened?
Like, can we reach out to the so-and-so's? Like, what went on?
Yeah.
And they basically said, we're too much, too tired, done. But I didn't now because I'm using software to schedule volunteers. I'm using software to, they've done that class. Oh, they're serving in, kids ministry, or they're on the door or whatever. I know all that now. And so, it was pretty, and, even the last kind of 3-5 years of leading the church, we had policies around, we just didn't want people serving in kids ministry. I think 4 weeks was the max in a row.
Right.
And because there's some people that love it, and they'll just, but it's like, you need to be in church too. You need to hear the word. Like, you want to be in corporate worship. You want to experience these spiritual kind of growth moments. And thank you so there's these people that overserve when they need to have some, spiritual nourishment in service, and, small group or whatever. And then there's, people that are like, oh, they need to learn this whole thing works on volunteers. And so I just found teaching it and talking about it. And you can do things like help people kind of get a sense of their spiritual gifts, what their strengths are. There's personality tests, there's all those things now. But getting a sense of, okay, what do you love to do? What do you good? Do you love serving with kids? Great. Like, let's get your background check done, and we'll get you serving. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of helping people discover what they're good at and plugging them in holes, and then making sure they don't burn out, and then making sure that they're spiritually nourished.
Yeah.
And I did a quarterly kind of volunteer meeting. So 4 times a year, I'd want to speak into the volunteers. I want to pray for them, and making sure that they were, and we buy food and like have a great night. And, you know, those meetings are like praying together with a bunch of leaders and people that are serving. These are they're giving, they're serving with their time, they're giving of their treasure. They're saying, here's my talents, use my talent for God. I mean, that's, you know, that's the whole goal.
Yeah.
And it's making sure that those people feel cared for, loved, managed is, you know, kind of an important word. You got to come and manage this stuff, otherwise it manages you. And so, but again, good balance, good people around you.
Yeah, I think that's good to highlight as well, that the software is not meant to take you away from people. It's actually meant to magnify things that maybe you couldn't see if you didn't have the software.
Yep.
So I appreciate that highlight as someone obviously who's served in church my whole life as a pastor's kid. I've done you know, all of it. I think it's really important as a volunteer when I feel seen and recognized for what I'm doing, but also like you said, being poured into. And I think with software like what we have, you're able to set those reminders. You can throw a follow-up and say, hey, we need to reach out to this new person, or we need to reach out to this volunteer who served, like you said, every day for the last 3 years. Like we need to be checking in on our people. And I think sometimes software can seem scary if it's something that you're adapting to. Like you said, there was time where you didn't have software, like you just had yourself, and there's a lot of times that people probably slipped through the cracks and left, and you had no idea wwhy. It's like,
you know, I had bits of paper and little cards and like back in the day, and I mean, you just it's like we use it in every part of our life now. And it's, you know, some people are like, wow, do I need it for church? It's like, you know, you're using it everywhere. And let's not even get started on AI. It's like that we'll do another webinar on that at some other point. What all this technology that's coming, that I think actually the church should not be shy about stepping up and using it. The world tends to grab a hold of these things quicker than the church world does, and I think we should lead and utilize whatever God gives us to be able to do our job better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, unless you have any closing thoughts on those questions, I think it's a good time now to transition into the Q&A portion of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see a couple questions, and if you guys haven't asked questions while we were chatting, go ahead and drop them in there now, either in the Q&A channel or in the chat. I'll find it. But let me throw this one up here. We've got a question. Someone is asking, should vision casting be done at the beginning of the year, or can it be done anytime?
Good question. You know, look, there's something to the beginning of the year. It's a thing. So I think definitely, and you know, God invented 4 seasons, right? So there's things that, you know, are seeded and grow, and then, you know, in the spring, and then the summer comes and the fruit comes, and then sometimes there's a pruning, and then there's even seasons where there isn't growth, and you're just hanging on for dear life underneath the snow. So God is definitely seasonal. I always liked, if I was going to do something fresh, if I was, let's say we wanted to buy some land or build a building or plant another congregation, you know, I would start, you know, casting that early in the first quarter. And then kind of, but like we talked about, once you cast a vision, once you kind of set sail for a destination, you're always talking about it, and you're always trimming the sails, and you're always trying to point the boat and to catch the most amount of wind to get to where you want to go in a faster fashion. So I like the beginning, but you got to keep that thing rolling all year. And then some years, sometimes it's like multi-year, you know, fundraising campaigns. You're going to raise millions of dollars. You're going to buy some land. You're going to build a building. Like that's maybe it's 3 years, you know, depending on what the goal is. And so you better be on that that vision train as every chance you can get.
Yeah, that's good. And I think there are people obviously in the chat who are likely pastors, but there also might not. And there's, you know, admin and people who are on the back end of things. When you talk about casting vision, are you referring to, I guess I want to clarify for those people who are not on stage what casting vision looks like and how that can also be done behind the scenes.
Yeah, and both are critical. So, what comes from the stage is very important, but
Mm.
then, the senior person can't be everywhere. So
Right.
you better have a bunch of people that can articulate your vision and then keep that vision being fed down through the congregation. And so that's part of your leadership team and part of your job as the leader to make sure that they feel empowered, that
Mm.
they can articulate, the vision of the church. And it's more than just like a slogan. It's like, okay, yeah, you can have a saying,
Right.
but man, is this alive in me? Is this real in me? And if it is, it's gonna come out of you.
Mm.
So you can be in the back office, or you can be on the door, or you can be helping with communion, but the vision's so strong, it's just in you. And so whenever you get the opportunity to talk about it, you're going to, because it's just in there.
Right.
And then and then God gives you specific opportunities to share the vision of the church, and you take those, when they appear too. But it kind of never ends.
Yeah. I think that kind of highlights this question as well, where obviously this is a unique experience to this church about a new pastor who's stepping in. How can we get the congregation
Yep.
in developing and embracing the vision? But it kind of speaks to what you were just saying, that it sounds like the vision has to be so embedded in you that it's just constantly flowing out. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
just not going to stick.
And look, lots of different ways to run a church. And in the New Testament, there's different ways to run a church. I would have, if you're getting a new pastor, I would get them installed
Mm.
and because the congregation is going to have a lot of ideas. The congregation is going to have a lot of passion. This is what we want to do. But that pastor who's kind of leading the congregation, and we have boards and we have structures and we have all those things in place that are healthy. But that person that God's called to be your pastor, your shepherd, needs to feel the freedom to be able to get up and articulate. And if he's smart, he'll find all the influential people, the people that have helped build this church and sacrificed and given, and third generation or whatever. And you'll go and, listen to people that have been very involved in the church and start to kind of take on board some of the history of the church, what the church has been through. Maybe it's been through some trauma, maybe whatever. So you're going to have to kind of get your feet on the ground, get a feeling, but then at some point, that person is going to have to articulate, hey, in consultation with the team, hey, I think God's called us to, feed 1,000 people this year,
Right.
or give every kid a backpack with school supplies or whatever, right? And it's like that comes, and then people get excited about whatever it is, that you're articulating, and then all of a sudden that stuff starts happening. Things start moving, and things, we have big thing with single moms, and getting them cars and helping them get to work and helping them with jobs, and it was just kind of a thing we got into, and people loved it. Like I would have business people, and we'd have to a single mother who's got two kids and she's got to work. Like that is almost an impossible life.
Right.
So right. So it's like, and then their car breaks down and their whole world is a mess. So, I had a team of mechanics, car guys, right? They go and then fix cars for these single moms and get them back on the road. They loved it. They could go and do 3 hours and do an oil change or whatever. And they felt like they were doing what, God gave them their gifts and they're using them. And the single mothers are out of their minds, happy. So my point is that vision that's kind of starts as a seed. You start to bake it, like you're pregnant with it. It's like this kind of thing that you want to see come to fruition that lives inside of you. And then people catch it, and then they start to, and then God gives them other people their like part of the puzzle that they're supposed to, be involved in and seeing this thing come to pass. And so, fun times.
Yeah, that's good. I see this question here and I want to ask it because I think it's a really interesting question.
Mhm.
How do you best get the congregation's input when vision casting? I think this was an interesting perspective because we've been
Yep.
talking about from the inside out. What's your perspective on getting input or maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
I always wanted input, from anyone that, and so now, like, and this again is there's different strokes for different folks. I felt the main direction of where the church was gonna go was
mm,
gonna come from the senior pastor.
right,
But a good leader, not doesn't just kind of embrace and bring around them like smart people that can articulate, you know, but they also have their own ideas. And just because like a strong leader is not afraid to have other people give them ideas. A lot of the stuff that I, was involved in over ministry, it was not my idea. It was someone else's idea.
right,
And, but God gave me the kind of the gift and the tools to be able to help that thing happen. But and so, yeah, you're 100%. But I wasn't a big committee person,
hmm,
and it's hard to lead by committee, and I
right,
don't advise it. But collaboration, input, you want people, there's a very famous old management book called Good to Great. And one of the chapters is about getting the right people on the bus and then getting them in the right seats on the bus.
right,
And so like that's and I'm driving the bus. It's got to be one driver.
yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, you get our problems.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean you're an autocrat and it's my way or the highway. Like those people don't stay leaders for very long in church life.
hmm,
People put up with it, nor should they. And so a good leader will have vision, will know where they're going, will want to bring a bunch of people with them, but they'll also be able to listen and take advice and make adjustments. Because
yeah,
sometimes you set the sail, and I use the sailing kind of analogy a lot, and you say, well, this is where we're going, but it's like, but the storm came from over here, and so you're going to crash into the rocks if you just
right,
keep doing that. So you
yeah,
got to make adjustments, and sometimes it's the guy in the crow's nest, or like the captain's driving the boat, but there's other people who are looking out, and
mhm,
like you don't if you don't listen to them, you're going to have a shipwreck.
yeah,
So collaborative leadership is well written about,
mhm.
and I think we're much better at it today than probably when I started in leadership.
Yeah, I really like what you said. It was repeat it for me because I think that was so good for a lot of people that, um, getting the right people on the bus, but making sure they're in the right seat. Is that what
Right,
you
yes,
said?
right,
Yeah,
and like, yeah, I'm going on a journey, and this is where I'm headed.
yeah,
And who wants to come? I want to come. Great, come on the bus. What are you good at? What are you good at?
yeah,
What's your passion? Okay, there's a good seat for you right there.
yeah,
And let's go. Now, sometimes the seats change. Sometimes you do something for a year or two, and maybe you grow and you evolve and you do other things. But having that, especially a core team,
yeah,
in church planting, having those 4 or 5 families that are kind of deeply committed to this
mhm,
thing, taking over an older congregation that's been around for 50, 100 years. That's different than planting a church, with a bunch of guitars and rock and roll drums, and so you make the adjustment where you have to, but the principle is the same. Get
yeah,
that team on the bus, get them in the right seats.
yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know, this one, it might get cut off because it's a longer one. Oh, it didn't. Perfect. This one I think is good. It's just a practical, more of a practical question. I think a
Yep.
lot of people are balancing the tension of people who are not super tech savvy and are not willing to
Yep.
adapt new software. I know you spoke, obviously, you've seen ministry through stages of having nothing at all to now it's
Yep.
like all tech world. So,
Yes.
I think yeah, share a little bit about your experience and how maybe you would get people to
I
get
mean,
on board.
like on the, using the tech to give, let's just,
Mhm.
on the Tithely side for a second, there's no substitute for talking about it, teaching, like showing, show and tell, phone up on the screen, giving a donation. This is how I download. we do tap now. It's like there's no substitute from actually talking about it, which that's a whole nother subject, talking about money in church. Some pastors find it easy too, some don't. I would encourage you to find it easy because I've never seen a healthy, successful church. And when I mean success, I don't mean big.
Right.
Like there is a lot of 100-member churches that are successful because they're caring for the people that God's brought into their community. They're doing a lot of times. Smaller churches do more in the community than large churches to get those big church, big budget, a lot of mouths to feed, staff everywhere, programs going on. Sometimes it's those smaller churches that are actually doing phenomenal things in a hyper local way, which is the way I kind of frame it. And so whatever success means, it's not big, but you want to have a healthy, hopefully growing, but a healthy church, and you've got to, and the only way you're going to really do that is get other people with you involved, and then you got to teach them, and like giving has to come out of a personal revelation, whether you're writing a check, putting cash in, or using an app. It doesn't matter. It's a spiritual act. It's a worship. It's a part of our worship when we give. That's what the Bible teaches. And so talking about that, teaching that, technology, checks, cash, apps, who cares? The first thing is, I have a revelation of what the Bible is teaching about generosity. And we can argue tithe 10%. Jesus wanted it all. He wanted 100%. So there you go. Doesn't matter that, don't get hitched up on the amount. Get hooked up on the habit.
Yeah, that's good.
And the habit is, I want to be a generous person. And here's some technology that makes it easier for me to do that. I can set up a recurring gift or whatever. That's got to come from the pulpit. If that minister does not have a revelation of generosity themselves, and I'm not talking about crazy faith, like silly, I'll say TV evangelist. I don't want to come across say that like that, but you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know what that is. Yes. I'm not advocating that. What I'm saying is I have read the Bible and I understand one of God's purposes for me is to get resources through me.
Right.
I want God to get resources through my life so I can build the kingdom and do what God has called me to do. And that's just a revelation that has to come from the top. And then when you've got it, you articulate it, you watch, it goes like wildfire.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think there is one question. I'm not going to throw it up just because it's super long, but I think it kind of touches on similarly what that person was asking is they were asking, I think maybe for practical ways, but also some just encouragement for that younger generation. How can we empower maybe the older generation to get on board with that the new tech and all of the stuff that it involves? But this person specifically asks how we can do that in a way that's honoring. And I like that they added that. I think maybe just some encouragement for us would be awesome there.
100%. And look, you never want to talk down to the older generation. Right. They pay all the bills mostly. There's ways that you can be practical and honoring. And, I had most young people don't know how to keep a budget. They don't know how to manage their finances. We did, Dave Ramsey, and we did financial university, but I also had a team of older people that had either retired or in that kind of zone who were business people and were accountants. And so I ran classes for the younger people with the people who are in their 60s that had lived a bunch of life, seen a bunch of stuff. And the young people loved it. And literally they were just geeking out on doing budgets and but the younger people loved it. So I would utilize and inspire your older generation to help the younger generation, bridges the gap, bridges that divide, and everyone's learning. It's great.
Yeah, That's awesome. Well, we are coming right up to the end of time, so just a couple housekeeping things. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to our support team via the chat bubble in your account, as well as our Tithely University to answer a couple questions that I saw. These are always recorded, and if you registered, it will be sent to you after this is done. But I think the best way to close this out, Dean, could you just pray for us?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jesus. Lord, we're just astounded and we're thankful every single day we get to wake up and do things for your glory. I pray for all my friends here that I may have met, or if I haven't, I pray for the blessing of heaven on their ministry, on their calling, on their church. Let them be fruitful and multiply as we go forth by faith every single day and do what you've put in our heart to do, Lord. So I pray the blessing of heaven on all of our friends. Look after our employees, Lord. Give us all the wisdom to keep making good and right decisions to serve our customers well. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Dean, for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to impart some wisdom on us, so much to think about. And we just are grateful to all of you for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next one.
Awesome.
All right.
Blessings.